about the alignment of the pelvis and rotation. Let's talk about the alignment of the pelvis first.
All right. So what we're doing is we're making a paradigm shift between arching your back, hyperextending the low back, or tucking and pushing the pelvis under and trying to get your rotation from tucking and pushing the thighs forward. Because what happens is that the thigh bone has to sit back in the center of the hip socket.
Right.
When you thrust the thigh bone forward, you actually inhibit rotation. It can't happen.
So you kind of lock it down.
You're locking into the joint. And that's when you start to get ankle and knee problems and sacral problems big time. Yeah.
And the placement of the misplacement of the pelvis will probably start, you'll start to feel that where you think in your knees or your ankles first.
It really depends on the student, but often knees.
Yeah.
Often it will go into your knees, or you'll have hip flexor problems.
Right.
A lot of people have problems just lifting, doing a développé because the joint gets inflamed. They get tendonitis, bursitis.
Right, or that iliopsoas syndrome.
Yeah.
The thing that I think is interesting is that rotation is often taught conceptually from back to front.
Yes.
And it's never taught in a supportive, there's no equality when you think about turnout. You think about your turnout muscles are in the back, and that's where you hold your turnout from.
Right.
That it's all going this way.
Right.
And so it makes sense that we end up in that position and with that concept. And then you go from the back to the front and then push the knees open. So everything is going that way to push the pelvis forward.
Forward, right. Well, and here's the concept. You're not trying to get the legs under the pelvis. You're trying to get the pelvis up over the legs.
Right.
And I think, again, we keep going back and forth to, is it here with the pelvis or here with the pelvis? It's a paradigm shift. It's neither one of those.
Okay.
When you get the thigh bone rooted in the center of the hip socket, you've got optimal alignment and easy rotation.
And there is a lot of space.
And then the right muscles will kick in to support that. I think a lot of dancers, too, really get stuck in this idea of turnout. I've got to get better turnout. But you can only rotate outward as much as you can rotate inward. You have to have ultimate, as much range of motion in the joint as you need
possible.
to. A la balance sheet, turn in, turn out, turn in, turn out.
Right.
That's what he's doing in the hip joint, oftentimes. You see
Right,
that
right.
in choreography.
There was something else I was just thinking about, the idea of the pelvis, of the idea of space and not being shut down. And it feels like often you can see it, this idea of trying to rotate by, it looks like it feels like this.
Well, because oftentimes we're trying to get rid of the curve in the low back.
Right.
And you don't want to do that. You want to maximize those curves and lengthen and extend the curve instead of pushing down and under. And you get a teacher who may take your pelvis and press you under, and that's going to shove your thigh bones forward in the hip socket. In yoga, we talk about the bandhas. Okay, Mula Bandha is really the lift of the pelvic floor. A bandha is a lock. If the pelvic floor is off center, it can't be lifted. You can't really engage the pelvic floor in the tailbone. Hence, you can't really find your center. There's all this discussion about center, but when the pelvis is pushed underneath you, you've been pushed off your center. You're off your leg. So it's not possible to internally lift.
The other thing that you mentioned was when you take the curve out of the lower spine, you take the curve out of the upper neck. And it's very interesting because you'll see a lot of ballet dancers who have this really flat sort of neck here. And it looks you're like the neck, something's not right there. And that could be a part of it. Is the idea.
Also, you'll flatten the thoracic curve, and that can start to give you a lot of problems as well. Once you start to take those curves out, you've actually lost shock absorption. That's what they're there for. So if you're taking the curve out and you're just a regular person who's walking around, you can get back problems. But if you've taken the curves out and you're jumping,
hence why you might feel it in the knees first.
Right.
Because That's the next shock absorber.
And once
big
the
shock absorber.
So,
yeah.
and once the pelvis works in that way and pushes under, it's going to roll you to your outer feet as well. You're not going to you're not going to lift your arch. You're not going to find your inner thigh. You're not going to find the support to the core, to the spine. The center of the body is the spine. And you literally have to work physically through the center of the body.
All right, so we're going to take a look at this. And you're going to fix, I have to be the model today.